Some nights, you pick up a person. Other nights, you pick up a feeling, and that feeling stays with you, riding in the back seat long after your shift is over. I should have kept driving. I know that now. Every instinct told me to, but I saw them, and I stopped. The mistake wasn't stopping for someone at a bus stop in the middle of a Minnesota snowstorm. The mistake was stopping when no one else was there. This was one of those nights where the cold gets inside the car with you, just before sunrise. But the sky was still a deep, bruised purple. A storm had just buried everything, and the world went quiet. My last ride of the night had canceled, leaving me stranded 40 miles from home with nothing but static on the radio and the hum of the engine. That's when I saw it. A single bus stop, half swallowed by a snowbank on the side of a dead empty highway. Under its weak, flickering light, a figure stood perfectly still. It felt double rent. There are no bus routes out here at this hour. Not in this weather. But my brain just said, they're freezing. You have to stop. So I did. The memory of that decision still feels colder than the ice on the road. It wasn't just a ride, it was the beginning of a story I wish I'd never been a part of. I pulled my Camry over, the tires crunching on the fresh snow. The passenger door unlocked with a soft click that sounded way too loud in the silence. The figure didn't move at first. They just stood there, head down, letting the snow collect on their shoulders. I rolled down my window, the cold air hitting my face like a slap. "Hey, you need a ride?" My voice came out thin. The person finally looked up. It was a man, maybe in his late 40s. His face was pale, almost gray under the buzzing streetlight. He wore a thin jacket, nowhere near warm enough for this weather. He just nodded slowly, then started walking toward the car. He moved with this strange, heavy deliberation, each step seeming to take a huge effort. The only tracks in the fresh snow were the ones he was making right then, leading from the shelter to my car. But that wasn't the strangest part. When he opened the back door, a blast of air came in with him, but it wasn't cold. It was damp, and it smelled like wet soil and fallen leaves, like a forest floor in autumn, not a frozen Minnesota winter. He slid into the back seat without a word. "Where are you headed?" I asked, trying to sound normal, trying to ignore the smell. He didn't answer right away. I glanced in the rearview mirror. He was just sitting there, staring straight ahead, his hands resting on his knees. His clothes were soaked through, but not with melted snow. They were hoost, wet, like he'd been pulled from a lake. "Sir?" I tried again. He finally spoke. His voice was raspy, low. "Just drive. West? West?" That wasn't a destination. It was just a direction. The highway stretched out in front of us, a black ribbon cutting through a world of white. I put the car in drive, my heart starting to pound a low, steady rhythm against my ribs. The GPS on my phone was just a blank blue screen with a dot. There was no address to enter. He didn't seem to have a phone, or a wallet, or anything, just the clothes on his back. And that strange, earthy smell that was now filling my entire car. And that's when everything shifted. As we pulled away, I glanced back at the bus stop one last time in my side mirror. The fresh snow around it was completely untouched. There were no footprints at all. We drove in silence for maybe 10 minutes. The only sounds were the tires on the snow-packed road and the low hum of the heater fighting a losing battle against the cold. I kept my eyes locked on the road ahead, but my focus was entirely on the man in my back seat. I could feel his presence, heavy and still. I risked another look in the rearview mirror. He hadn't moved a muscle. He was just watching the dark, snow-covered fields pass by, his expression completely blank. I had to say something. The silence was becoming suffocating. "Pretty bad storm," I said. He didn't turn his head. He just whispered, "It wasn't the storm." A chill went down my spine that had nothing to do with the temperature. What did that even mean? I decided to try a different approach, a more direct one. "Look, I need an address. I can't just drive west all night." He finally turned his head and looked at me in the mirror. His eyes were dark, and they looked old, so incredibly old and tired. "Turn here," he said, pointing to a small, unplowed service road that disappeared into a line of dark trees. I shouldn't have taken that turn. The service road was barely a road at all. My Camry struggled through the deep snow, the headlights cutting a frantic path through the darkness. The trees closed in around us, their branches heavy with snow, creating a tunnel. It felt like we were driving off the edge of the map. "It's just up ahead," he said, his voice a little stronger now. "The old farm." I didn't see a farm. I didn't see anything but trees and snow and more darkness. The road got worse, and I could feel the car starting to lose traction. "I don't think I can go much further," I said, my hands tight on the steering wheel. "We're almost there," he insisted. His calmness was the most terrifying part. It was like he knew this road, knew exactly where it was going. He leaned forward slightly, and the smell of damp earth intensified. "Stop here!" We were in the middle of nowhere, a small clearing. Ahead I could just make out the skeletal shape of a collapsed barn and a ruined silo against the pre-dawn sky. This wasn't a farm. This was a grave. What he told me next still keeps me awake. He pointed toward the wreckage. "They're waiting." I stared at the ruins. There was no one there. No lights, no movement, just the wind whistling through the broken timbers of the old barn. "Who's waiting?" My voice was shaking now. I couldn't hide it. "My family," he said, his voice flat, without any emotion. We were heading home. The roads were bad. He paused, and in that silence, I felt the entire story click into place. The wet clothes, the smell of earth, the impossible footprints. I realized then, he wasn't telling me everything. He was showing me the car went off the road. "Right here," he said, his voice cracking for the first time. No one saw us. The snow, it just kept falling. My blood ran cold. I wasn't driving a passenger. I was driving a memory. He wasn't covered in water. He was covered in the feeling of that night. I turned to look at him, really look at him in the back seat. But he wasn't looking at the barn anymore. He was looking straight at me. "You have to tell them," he whispered, his voice desperate. "You have to tell them where we are." And then he opened the car door and stepped out into the snow. He walked toward the collapsed barn, his figure slowly getting smaller, dimmer. He didn't look back. He just walked into the darkness and disappeared among the ruins. I sat there, engine running, my heart hammering in my chest. I couldn't move. My headlights illuminated the falling snow and the tracks he had just made. I waited 5 minutes, 10. The sun was starting to rise, painting the edges of the sky in shades of gray and pale orange. I finally got out of the car. The cold was brutal. I followed his footprints, my own boots sinking deep into the snow. They led right to the edge of the ruined barn, and then they just stopped. There was nothing. No man. No sign of anyone. Just my own tracks leading away from my car. It was then, in the growing light, that I saw something else. Partially buried in the snow, near the foundation of the barn, was a small, rusted piece of metal. A piece of a car door, maybe. The color was faded, but I could still make it out. It was dark blue, the same color as my Toyota Camry. I backed away slowly, got in my car, and drove. I didn't stop until the sun was fully up, and the world looked normal again. But it wasn't. It will never be normal again. Some nights, you're just a driver. But on a night like that, you become a witness. And you carry that story with you forever. If this felt too real, say something below. The night remembers more than we think.